Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, was Darshan Hiranandani, the man who's central to this entire controversy, the man who's put out an affidavit, the man who was the dramatis personae, as it were, in asking the questions against the Adani Group and using the platform provided by Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra from the Trinamool Congress. He's spoken. All the questions that probably needed to be asked have been asked, and the legitimate question that we're asking before we get into a debate tonight is, should Mahua Moitra now come clean on all of these issues? That's the question that we are asking, and going across to the debate on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Joining the debate tonight, Charu Pragya, spokesperson of the BJP, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, senior fellow at the IPCS, Dr. Anand Raghunathan, author, scientist, political analyst. He wears many hats. Anirban Banerjee, lawyer and political analyst. Sanjay Jha, author. Before I even ask anybody anything about the questions, I just want to get the first impressions from all my panelists on what they thought about the interview. So, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, I will always be partial to you because you were the first one to tweet on this entire story. So, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, what do you think about Darshan Hiranandani's statements, his answers, and where does this investigation go from here?
Thank you, Navika, and congrats on your big scoop. You're the first person. We all tried getting to the bottom of the story. You actually got to the big man himself. So congrats to you. I want to make three separate points. I think the first thing that's come through in this interview is there was no gun to his head. Number two, I think the gentleman now realizes what kind of deep trouble he's in, and he's trying to cut his losses very, very clearly. The third is the fact that he has now put out so much out there. I just want to point out that all of this is verifiable information. The logins can be verified by the NIC. The telemetry of the phones can be worked out. If in fact there were, if the parliamentary account was accessed from a distance, from a distant location, etc., etc. I think it's basically come out as the verbal coup de grace that we needed to back up the allegations that now are on paper.
Well, he has confirmed the fact that he did use the login. How many times is verifiable by NIC, as you say, because electronic footprints are easy to discover these days. But he has admitted that he did use that login, and he has admitted to the fact that yes, gifts were given, favors were given, travel was organized, renovation and refurbishment of the Member of Parliament accommodation was done, all of that, and he says he stands by the fact. So Sanjay Jha, doesn't this make it completely incumbent upon Mahua Moitra now to disprove that she was actually targeting the Prime Minister through the Adani Group and using corporate interests of the Hiranandani Group really and becoming a pawn in the entire process, So is this not now time for Mahua Moitra to come out and say what is her defense to the charges against her, number one, and number two, that this affidavit first was not under duress. The man has come on camera. He has spoken to me and said that it was drafted by his own lawyers, and he has signed it voluntarily. So that defense of Mahua Moitra that, this was done under duress and this was drafted in the PMO, they all fall flat at this moment, Sanjay Jha.
Navika, I just want to make 2 points. Number one, since we are discussing Mahua here, and I will just go by what she's tweeted last. because that I think is in a great number of ways an attestation of probably the entire case. This is what she tweeted. Sorry, Mr. Adani, I'm not taking your deal to shut up for 6 months in return for peace, in quotes. And nor am I taking the second deal where I'm allowed to attack you, but not the Prime Minister. Adani used to cash to not question. Now he's forced to create a fake cash for questions. Now here is the quintessential argument. Whatever is going on in this case, it will have to be investigated. I don't want to comment on a matter which is sub judice, but the truth is this is to do with the Adani issue and the allegations, which, by the way, are being investigated, well, I hope independently by SEBI under the Supreme Court's committee and the investigation. But there are 2 points, Navika, that nobody can ignore. Number one, I've been a banker, so I can tell you the Adani Group saw a meltdown after the Hindenburg report. And trust me, this was not some kind of an isolated hit job. No matter how much BJP tried to make it appear as if it was some kind of an international conspiracy. Financial investors don't invest and disinvest purely on sentiments. They go by certain tangible and tactile data and facts. Point number 2, and this is very important here. Rahul Gandhi, who took on Narendra Modi in the floor of the parliament on Adani, got disqualified within a month. Sanjay Singh of the Aam Aadmi Party, who was a vocal critic, talking repeatedly about Mr. Modi and Mr. Adani's alleged shenanigans, is arrested. Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, who's, by the way, been a champion in this crusade, wrote a book and what have you on the entire Adani saga, got interrogated. Mahua Mitra, everyone knows she's been extremely aggressive and, with enough substance, I would argue, she's now facing a huge slander case. Where does this all lead to? I'm not here to, spread any conspiracy theory, but even a kindergarten kid will see a certain pattern. But you know what? At the end of the day, Navika, I remain an ordinary citizen of India before everything else. I believe there is the Supreme Court. I believe everybody who's charged will have a right to defend himself or herself. And end of day, today, tomorrow, a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a decade from now, but people will know the truth behind what is going on. So maybe there's an attempt here to try and, create a smoke screen. The easiest thing people can do, which happens traditionally in a fascist society, is that you really curb anybody who appears to be a threat and an opponent who basically makes it an existential crisis for you. And I have seen the BJP for a long time.
Sanjay Jha, you remind me of the Joan of Arc.
I get worried.
Sanjay Jha, you reminding me of the Joan of Arc. कि सबने आग जला दिया, आपको पिलर के साथ लगा दिया और आपके आसपास आग जला दिए. कमाल है भाई. Simple question. You're talking about Mahua Moitra here. The truth of Mahua Moitra's defense so far, that has been busted by the person who actually asked those questions from her login and who has confessed to all of this. You're not commenting on that truth, but you're raising questions about another conspiracy theory. You're not commenting about the fact that there is a quid pro quo and that parliamentary norms have been broken and that the parliament has been used as a platform where corporate interests are, being played on through a member of parliament. That to you is legitimate, but questions are being asked about Mahua Moitra के खिलाफ हो गया, संजय सिंह के खिलाफ हो गया, राहुल गांधी डिस्क्वालीफाई हो गया, हाय बेचारा, सब बेचारे हैं, everything is being done by Modi and Adani. Back to square one, not answering any of the questions in the present.
Navika, a short answer to your question here. There is a very pertinent tweet that she actually put out on the same day. And this is going to be very crucial because the NIC can't dodge it. Honestly, they can't. It's in the public domain. And I'm sure her lawyers will argue the case. She writes this. And by the way, let me tell you, I have friends who are parliamentarians. None of them have denied what she said. And here it is. Request NIC to please release all details of MPs publicly to show that they were physically present in the place from where their IDs were accessed by their PAs and researchers, interns and staff. Don't use fake degrees, wala, for leak. make this public now. We have to find out whether there is a protocol and a practice that
All right.
everybody follows.
Fantastic. Now interns, researchers and PAs are being substituted for Darshan Hiranandani. Anand Ranganathan, I don't have the tenacity to argue this one. Why don't you argue it for me? Because PA jo kar raha hai, wo Darshan Hiranandani is not a PA. I mean, that is something that is crystal clear. But Sanjay Jha still wants to use that argument. I'm dumbfounded on how to respond to that.
It is
No,
a
not for
delegation
not-
of your password access.
Sanjay, I didn't interrupt.
It's a serious
Sanjay,
issue,
I didn't
Navika.
interrupt you.
Yeah, go
Sanjay, I
ahead.
didn't
Go ahead.
interrupt you.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, we've all known Rahul Gandhi for about, I think, 10, 14 years. We can safely say that perhaps the most rational and logical decision that he's ever made in that time is to have suspended my good friend Sanjay Jha, going by his utterances tonight. No, but let me come back to, and that's on a light-hearted vein, Sanjay, please don't mind that. Navika, first of all, can I congratulate you? Can I congratulate you on that interview? You were asking, you wanted to go around the panel and ask everyone how that interview was. I think the CBI now needs to do interning in NBI, Navika Bureau of Investigation. You asked him about 100 questions, breakneck speed, and the fellow was like a rabbit in front of headlights. I mean, it reminded me when my wife WhatsApps me and says, "Wo gas khuli chhod gaye the," and I'll say, "I have explained everything that I said in the WhatsApp message," and I repeat that about 30 times. It was incredible. You asked him everything there is to know. So there are two things that one gleans through this. One, that this gentleman is also possibly going to jail along with Miss Mahua Moitra, but the difference is he knows it. Miss Mahua Moitra till tonight possibly still thinks she can escape prison, but I don't think she can. Going by this damning testimony, which is a first person's account of what he's done, as I said it on day one itself, Navika, you weren't there, but I think Swati, I said, this is the work of an approver. He has turned an approver because he knows he's culpable. He has bribed a sitting MP. The MP has committed some criminality and he is an accomplice. So might also be the lawyer friend, but that's another matter completely. So in this case, let me just stick to this. I'm not concerned with Navika, those Hermes, thank God for telling us how it's pronounced, because I used to pronounce G. Forget as Guy Forget. So Hermes or Louis Vuitton or Ferragamo or whatever, I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with strict illegality and criminality that has happened through that login and password. And at least one thing you managed to sneak out of him. He was very careful at all times, but I don't know, he let it slip, that he has used it. Now that is clear criminality, Navika, and the agencies will have to go for it. My hunch is he's possibly not going to come back to India. We have another Farrar on our cards here, because if he does, you might say, some people, surely Sanjay Jha might say that the central government might be kind to him, but the state government would not. And I see a flurry of FIRs against him now, instigated possibly by Trinamool, and Anirbanda would possibly elaborate more on that. So he's staying put in Dubai till the mud clears or whatever it may be. But it is absolutely clear as day that Miss Mahua Moitra has to resign. There is no way out. These allegations have not been made by Modi, Shah or Shivraj Chauhan or whoever you might implicate. These allegations have been made by the person who Miss Mahua Moitra denied she'd ever taken money from. He is the person level-headedly. He's saying, I did this. Whatever I've said in the affidavit was not written by PMO, was written by me. This is as damning as it can get, Navika, and congratulations again.
Well, let me ask Anirban Banerjee. Anirban Banerjee, the question here is that Mahua Moitra, the member of parliament, her defense was that the affidavit had been, first she said that Jay Anand Dehedrai's affidavit, was an ex's vitriol pouring out, so she did not give much credence to that. And then she said Darshan Hiranandani's affidavit is nothing but, an entire copy written in the PMO and sent to him and a gun put to his head. To both of which he's responded saying that I've written it on my own. First, yes, there was a press release from the Hiranandani group on the 16th of October saying that they had nothing to do. But when the matter escalated, went to agencies and the Ethics Committee of Parliament, he knew that his game was over. So he's come out and spoken about it in his affidavit and now tonight on this interview with me. So the question is back in Ms. Mahua Moitra's court. If this is not a coerced affidavit, if the PMO has nothing to do with it and the matter has been stated by Darshan Hiranandani that he did use her login and password, then she has violated the law, number one. And number two, let me also clarify, Darshan Hiranandani by no stretch of imagination was either an intern or a PA or a researcher in the team of the Member of Parliament, Ms. Mahua Moitra. So what can her defense now be?
Well, what her defense might be, I think she has put out a string of tweets, and on every point she has touched, there is an element of defense that she might be thinking about. But what I see from the interviewer, by the way, congratulations for the interview, very sharp questions, but not so sharp answers. In this case, it was more like a same answer to almost every question, that everything is in the affidavit. So if I go by the affidavit that everything that has been stated is true, then what Mr. Hiranandani has done is just saying that it was an error of judgment is not going to relieve him of the charges that it was an act of criminality. That's number one. Number two, if he has given many, all those Louis Vuitton and everything, all those fancy gift items to Madam Moitra and cash, everything that has been mentioned or alleged by Joy Dehadrai, in that case the question is raised that for what? If you go by the definition in the Prevention of Corruption Act, there has to be a consideration in exchange for something. What is that something? Asking questions in the parliament is not that quote-unquote something for which you give consideration. There has to be some material profit that the person who is giving the consideration gets. In this case, what is that? Therefore, the third question that you're asking regarding the password and the username of the parliamentary login portal, etc., whether Madam Moitra gave the details to Mr. Hiranandani or somebody else, how do you prove that? For a moment, let us consider that all the allegations are true. Each and every allegation put up by the BJP MP is true. And even then, in the case of criminal court of law, not the ethics committee, for the criminal court of law, you have to prove, the person who is bringing the allegations have to prove that these are true, and that is the person incumbent upon him or her who has to give all the evidence concerned. It's not the accused person who has to disprove the allegations. The person who is bringing the allegations, he has to prove the allegations. In this case, how exactly do you prove that Madam Moitra herself gave the details to Mr. Hiranandani? And for the other question, as I said, all the things, all the gift items, if it is cash or not, in exchange of what?
So now it comes down to a baser question, Charu Pragya, that Mahua Moitra herself may not have given this ID and login. It may have been given by somebody else, so transfer the guilt to somebody else. Charu Pragya,
that is what I am saying. In the criminal court of law, evidence and proof counts. Nothing else does.
Navika, good evening to you, and a very good evening to all our viewers tonight. And I congratulate you on this coup of an interview. It was brilliantly conducted, and thank you for bringing more of this story in front of all of us tonight. So Mahua Moitra's entire defense was filmy at best, and it was so filmy that I was suggesting that she should look at an alternate career of script writing. Glad to see Sanjay ji tonight has joined his friend Mahua in that script writing by coming up with one bizarre imaginary scenario after another. The whole backbone of her defense has collapsed like a house of cards. It's completely collapsed. There was one person that Mahua Moitra, देखिए ये आपने चेंज कर दिया. अगर आप ये मानते भी थे तो you have beaten that hands down and Mahua is giving you fantastic competition because while she claims to be busy with Durga Pujo, she keeps tweeting after tweeting after tweeting. But may I please speak uninterrupted respectfully, please? May I? I did not interrupt the other panelist. Sanjay ji, may I please finish because I did not interrupt you. And if Navika will allow me, let me just put forward the rest of my views. So going forward, she has no defense whatsoever left. Now, at least Mr. Hiranandani had this, he admitted he erred. He had a judgment error and he admits to that. This comprehension is not dawned on Ms. Moitra even till now. She thinks it's perfectly fine for a member of parliament to stand up in parliament, ask questions which have nothing to do with the people. She claims to be working for the betterment of the country, right? She always says that it's in national interest. Her national interest is not even her constituents' interest. It has come down to not even the interest of the business house she's been talking about continually, but her own personal interest, and that is that, full stop. So Mahua Moitra ke liye national interest is equal to personal interest and nothing else. She is sharing her login ID and password and she's blatant about it. She's in fact, if I can use the word, completely shameless about it. She doesn't give it to a member of her staff, and I'm sorry, the kind of defense you're giving and saying that it is all right, it is not all right. It is not all right. It is not merely about a breach of privilege also. It is about misusing the privilege which is given to you by lakhs of people of her constituency. It is misusing that privilege which is bestowed upon you by the blessings of your constituents. And what have you done? You have betrayed them. And I've always been wanting to say this: the running of the parliament costs us, the citizens of this country, a lot of money, lakhs of rupees for every minute of running. What has Mahua Moitra used all these minutes for speaking in parliament for? Backing up a business house, which is instead backing her up.
Well, that,
and in this
that
quid
is
pro
a
quo,
question. That is a
it's
question.
become
That is a
it's
question,
become
fair
mayhem.
point. But the question here is the question that Sanjay Jha also raised, and Anand Ranganathan, let me ask you. He says anybody who asks a question on Adani Group, meets the fate of literally biting the dust, which was Rahul Gandhi, who was disqualified. Then
That's
came
why I
back,
called
and
Sanjay
then,
ji a script
Varun Joy
writer,
Dua
Navika.
Thakurta in the same, and then now Mahua Moitra, जैसे कि इन सब के खिलाफ एक षड्यंत्र बैठ के बन रहा है PMO में. That is what he's trying to allege. What do you think about that charge, Anand Ranganathan?
That's absolutely ridiculous. Rahul has bitten the dust not because he's asked questions on Adani, but generally because of his nature. But Navika, we have asked more questions on Adani than the opposition. And we have asked questions not only of the government. I have criticized Adani live on your show. We've also asked questions of the Congress. How is it that till today, in spite of saying that Adani is corrupt and is culpable and should be in jail, they still have 85,000 crores of Adani investment in their states running? How is that? Nobody can explain it, but that's another matter. I want to come to this matter and stick to it because I think it's very important. What Charu said hit the nail on the head, or shall I say the last nail on Mahua Moitra's coffin, metaphorically speaking. Because let us say tomorrow now Mahua Moitra will be asked to resign from the TMC and Anirban Da will be asked to take her place. Now tomorrow, when Anirban Da is a member of parliament, let us say an industrialist approaches him, asks for his login and password and says, I will give you so much, these Tom Ford shirts and Tom Ford suits and Burberry's jackets. You please allow me to actually slip in my questions that I want to be asked in the parliament. Will Anirban Da do it? It's a simple question. This is criminality right here. Why are we discussing Adani? Let us discuss the criminality that has happened right here, Navika.
Fair point. I'm coming to you, Sanjay Jha, but let me also get in Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, the question here is about the Mahua Moitra case. Now, the fact that the Telegraph Lane house was refurbished is something that he has confessed to. He's also given it in his affidavit. He's a little cagey, Darshan Hiranandani, about the cash transactions because obviously he doesn't want PMLA and ED to come after him. But that is also part of the allegations. Do you think the next stage of this investigation is to look at some of those transactions, apart from the fact that there is the login and the password question, which clearly is the violation of the rules of Parliament?
Look, I think the next sequence in this, even possibly before the Parliament hearing on the 26th, is going to be the fate of poor Henry. Remember, as per his human father, he's been kidnapped, and he probably needs to go back to the father, because no child should be deprived of the love of their father. Number one. Number two, what is going to happen is the parliamentary inquiry will go into the details, and I think number three then will proceed from it. Now, remember, we have a very notorious judgment saying it is the briber who is guilty and not the bribe taker who is guilty. I think it was because of that it was sent to the Ethics Committee of Parliament, and we will need a complete new canon of case law to see to it that even the bribe taker is punished out here. Because you tell me, I'm sure he's got some ace up his sleeve. He could not have written such a damning mea culpa of a statement like that without having some ace up his sleeve to negotiate with later on, knowing full well his lawyer would have known what the jurisprudence in the case is. So I suspect what is now going to happen is there is going to be an investigation. Remember, allegations come thick and fast, but they all have to be backed up by forensic investigation, data, etc., 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 which will take a few months. And unfortunately, whether Mr. Hiranandani likes it or not, he is going to be facing a lot of the flack for it.
Well, but at least he's had the guts to come out clean and make his statement, knowing that he can be in trouble. But Sanjay Jha, my only question, and I have just 30 seconds for you. My only question to you is it time for Mahua Moitra to come clean on what is seeming like now an open and shut case of a member of parliament misusing her position, giving her login ID and password to corporate interests for their own hit jobs?
Navika, let me tell you, Mahua's press statement that she released was very categorical, that the affidavit that the gentleman has apparently signed was under pressure from the PMO. I agree with Abhijit Mitra that it is a very explicit and can be very, self-damaging for him as well. Why would an individual do that? Those are things that obviously will surface, although you and I can speculate about it. But there's one point that is really
but he's clarified on that. He's clarified on that in person, on camera, with no gun to his head, even in the interview that I held with him, because he was sitting in Dubai and I'm sitting here. What more do you want? In which case, you've just proved a point, Sanjay Jha, and I'm completely out of time. It is.
You think you will ever say confess otherwise publicly?
Well,
the dog is in
where will
Mahua's
this
court.
take Mahua Moitra? When will she come out with the answers? Yes, and of course, our thoughts with Henry and what's going to happen to him. We'll leave it at that for the moment, but this story isn't going to come to an end anytime soon. We'll continue to follow all the other exclusive angles, but keep following Darshan Hiranandani and how he spills the beans on Times Now. That story will continue to be followed here today and tomorrow. Thank you for joining me on the News Hour tonight. Good night. Be care.